In today's episode, we are going to learn how to make a yellow vanilla cake. This particular type of cake is denser than a typical cake that you would get in the store, and the reason is because it's usually used with custard. What the denser cake does is it allows the custard to lay on top instead of seeping through the cake layers. So that's what we're going to be doing today, is we are going to be making the next edition of a Boston cream pie. We're ready to start our actual baking. So our first thing is to introduce the dry ingredients for this particular cake. First, we have 1 1/4 cup cake flour, the non-rising. And the reason why it's non-rising is because we want a denser cake, which means we don't want it to be fluffy when it comes out of the oven. Secondly, we have 3/4 cup teaspoon salt right here. Then we have 1 1/4 teaspoons of baking powder. So what we're going to do with these 3 ingredients is we are going to place them in the sifter, and then we're going to sift it. This just allows it to combine a little bit more and blend these 2 smaller ingredients in. So we have our flour, our baking powder, and our salt. And the job is just to make sure that, one, there's no clumps, so you'll notice no more clumps inside the flour mixture, and also to make sure it's all blended. So we have just a few pieces of salt still left to go. All right. What we get to do with this now is set it aside. Now we get to combine our eggs and our sugar together. And first though, let's introduce our ingredients. You want to have 2 large egg yolks. You want to have 2 large eggs, including the whites, and you want 1 1/4 cup sugar. So before we add the sugar, we have to combine these lovely eggs. So in your KitchenAid or whatever type of blender that you might have, make sure you attach your whisk attachment. They're a little slippery today. Now what we're going to do with these is we're just going to blend them for about a minute on medium. Medium, again, if you have this type of mixer, is between a 4 and a 5. Okay, it has now been approximately a minute, and what we're going to do is slowly incorporate the sugar. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to let that mix itself on high. High is about an 8, not a 10. Even though your KitchenAid says that 10 is your high, you really don't want to be using that in this particular situation. So you can move it up to 8. So it's going to mix those 2 ingredients together to create a nice light and fluffy yellow mixture. And at this point, we are going to now move over to the stove so that I can show you the next step. Okay, so now we're at the stove, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to take 3/4 cup whole milk. Yes, I said whole milk. You can also use 1% or 2%, just won't be as creamy. And 2 to 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I have 3 tablespoons. What we're going to do is we're going to put them into the pan or the pot here and heat it up. And what we want to do is have it at a simmer, the milk and the butter, and only have it hot but not boiling. We do not want it boiling at all. That just means it'll burn. So here goes the milk. And the butter. Now I cubed my butter. You can have it as a big lump if you really want to. This just allows it to melt a little bit quicker. And then all we're gonna do is we're gonna stir it until that butter is completely mixed in there and melted. And when we touch the milk, it's just a little bit too warm for your fingers, but not so warm that, you know, it melts your skin off or anything. You'll notice just around the edges that you'll see a little bit of bubble popping. So that's what we mean when we're saying simmering. If it was doing large bubbles on the inside, that would mean it's boiling, and we don't want boiling. So just a little bit on the edges right here, you can see that it's just going a little bit crazy. Okay, so we're gonna test it with our finger. Ooh, that's a little warm. So it is ready to go. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take it off the heat, and we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and I'm just gonna quickly whisk those ingredients together just to make sure that the vanilla is 100% incorporated. Okay, so the egg mixture looks light and fluffy at this moment. So let's see what that actually looks like. Turn the mixer off. What it should do is coat your whisks like it's doing right now, and then kind of flow like a ribbon as it's coming off. All right, so let's put it back down to medium. Put our cover back on, and then we're gonna take our hot milk and we're going to slowly incorporate this into the egg mixture. It's very important to slowly place it in there, otherwise you could cook your eggs, which then we have to start all over. We're gonna let that mix a little bit, and then we're going to incorporate our dry ingredients in. But now we're going to go and slowly incorporate our flour. Now, why do you want to do this? Because it can bunch up, clump up, and all of a sudden all you have are large clumps of flour, and that's not helpful. So what you want to do is you want to take 1/4 cup or 1/2 cup, depending on how fast you want to incorporate it, and then place it in. Let that completely get mixed in and incorporated, and then go ahead and add your next one, and your next one, and your next one, until all your flour mixture is gone. And you may have to scrape around the edges a couple times until all of the flour mixture is in fact incorporated. All right, so now it is completely mixed up. What we're gonna do now is we are going to take this and place it into our pans. Now I have 2 circular pans, you can see right here. Okay, so now what I usually do is I just take a 1/2 cup or a 1/4 cup, and I'm just gonna dip it in here, and I'm going to then put my batter into my pans. Now what you're gonna wanna do is make sure that you spread this batter out evenly between the 2, because these are going to be the layers of your Boston cream. And then we go ahead and we're going to place these into the middle rack of your oven and bake for 20 minutes. We'll see you in a little bit. All right, it has now been over 20 minutes. The cake has completely came out beautiful golden brown, and that there is how to make a nice beautiful yellow cake for a Boston cream pie.